Welcome back. I'd like to hand over to Ibrahim Adra in Abuja with more on the news at 10. Hi, Ibrahim.
Many thanks to you, Amarachi. Now, the federal government has released 2.5 trillion naira so far for the implementation of the 2016 budget. The Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udo Odoma, gave the figure to members of the Senate Committee on Appropriation at the meeting in the National Assembly. The meeting was an opportunity for members of the committee to discuss with the Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, and Senator Udo Odoma, the Minister of National Planning and Budget, on the level of implementation of the 2016 budget.
Information from your own side there.
Two members of President Buhari's economic team are before members of the Senate Committee on Appropriation. They are here to give details of the level of implementation of the 2016 budget and the state of the economy.
This is in continuation with our oversight functions in seeing that the budget is faithfully implemented in accordance with the provision of the Act.
In the 4 months or 5 months since the budget was passed, we have, as the Minister has indicated, spent an unprecedented 753 billion on capital, and we have not finished. We still intend to do more before the year is out.
The overheads, since we are short of funding, we cannot and have not been able to release 100% overheads. And so far, I think we've only been able to do up to 8 months.
It's the turn of the Minister of Finance, and she goes straight to an issue which has been at the center of public discourse for some time. How much funds have been recovered from those who looted the country's coffers?
The loot that was taken more recently, much of which is still tied up in legal process. Whilst we were in Washington, we had very positive meetings around some of the Abacha loot, which is about $300 million, which the Americans have now agreed would be returned to us. The Swiss loot, there's now an agreement on the return of those monies. But largely, what we've been recovering is largely loot here in the country. We've also recovered quite a lot of property, real estate, some of which we have converted into office space, because selling it at the moment we don't think we'll get good value.
The Finance Minister also reveals that some revenue-generating agencies are inflating their expenses and explains what government is doing about it.
We are developing a new template of what is an allowable expense for an agency. In other words, what is the type of expense they can charge against their revenue? Because at the moment there is no law, and where there's no law, there's no sin.
The Finance Minister also says the federal government is still waiting for the final agreement with Exim Bank China on funding the rail project.
And still talking the economy, the Central Bank of Nigeria is proposing an increase in capital expenditure, qualitative public sector spending and fiscal discipline as measures to reflect the economy. The Deputy Governor of the Central Bank on Economic Policy, Mrs. Sarah Alade, made the remarks at the opening of the 2016 Fiscal Liquidity Assessment Committee retreat in Abuja. The Deputy Governor, who represented the Governor of the Apex Bank, also observed that the circumstances that led Nigeria into the current economic crisis are structural, with solutions lying outside the domain of monetary policies.
Monetary policy had, under the circumstance, rose up to the occasion, deploying fully all the conventional and unconventional tools in its purview. However, as you will know, the conditions that precipitate the economic crisis are mainly structural, with antidotes that lie mostly outside the domain of monetary policy. The quick fixes include fiscal stimulus to resuscitate domestic production, qualitative public sector spending to stimulate aggregate demand, and practical steps to diversify the economy away from oil into agriculture, manufacturing, and services, increase capital expenditure to redress infrastructural deficits, improved internal revenue generation, increased fiscal discipline, and general improvement in the business environment to attract investors. In the light of this background, the theme of this year's retreat is indeed apt, as it encapsulates very important and urgent need for complementary fiscal policies to unlock the pressure valves in the domestic economy. It is then heartwarming to note that the program of events for this retreat clearly indicates that the choice of discussion topics and resource persons have been focused at articulating a critical mass of ideas around those issues that are capable of launching the economy back on the path of stable and self-sustained growth and development.
A joint committee of the House of Representatives is to investigate the inability of the Asset Management Company of Nigeria to recover over 2 trillion naira giving out to cover bank debts. The sponsor of the motion, Honorable John Bull Shekaro, said AMCON's inability to recover the said sum has made it difficult for the agency to redeem a 3-year zero-coupon bond it acquired from the CBN. The Committee on Banking and Currency, AIDS, Loans and Debt Management are to investigate the matter and submit a report in 4 weeks. We now cross over to Lagos once again, where Melinda is standing by to bring us stories from the world of business. Hello, Melinda.
You first. First Bank.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. The wave of militant attacks on oil facilities in the Niger Delta region has dented the third quarter earnings of Seplat Petroleum PLC, the only indigenous oil exploration company listed on both the London and Lagos Stock Exchange, has announced a net loss of 24 billion naira, higher than the 13.3 billion naira recorded in the same period last year. The company explains that it has taken steps to reduce the impact of the loss. The federal government has asked Nigerians to be patient with fiscal and monetary authorities over the state of the economy. The message was presented today by the Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry, Dr. Ogwechukwu Enelama, at the FBN Capital Investor Conference in Lagos. Our correspondent, Temple Ashaju, reports that plans to ease the economic situation were discussed at the meeting.
The FBN Capital Annual Conference is one of the platforms looked up to by investors for identifying sustainable growth opportunities in the country. This edition examines the economy at a crossroads and how to thrive in the face of new realities.
We have hosted the annual conference in line with our deep commitment to facilitating the debate on developing our market and promoting Nigeria as one of the leading investment destinations in sub-Saharan Africa for both our domestic and international investors.
The program is also put together with focus on how to return the economy to growth, temper inflation, and boost job creation. The Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry, Dr. Ogwechukwu Enelama, speaks on how government is responding to this.
It must unleash private sector initiative and private sector capital, which is why we say partnering with private capital is the theme of our economic strategy going forward. And then, of course, we want it to lead to the growth of exports. Why are exports important? Because when you think about exports, it's about competitiveness. That's what it's talking about. You can't export if you're in your own insular world and saying why you are such a unique country and why things are so difficult. So we hope that we will create that environment.
There were 2 panel discussions, and the panelists attempted matching opportunities with capital and how to fund infrastructure in the country.
If there are policies that just can allow availability of FX for those who require it, I think that's literally what we need.
With infrastructure projects, you're talking to the minister, you're talking to the ministry, there's a PPP department within the ministry, there's the ICRC. In an ideal world, what people do is you create a one-stop shop.
In agreement with the speakers here, the organizers believe the economic conditions calls for patience.
If the government is saying we need to work with you to make this happen, it's incumbent on us to go and sit down and determine exactly how that exchange will take place.
This year's edition of FBN Capital Investors Conference has seen a thought-provoking session between policymakers and business leaders. Participants look forward to policy implementation and results. Temple Ashaju, Channels Television News.
Positive sentiments continued on the local burst after a rally from consumer goods, industrial and banking stocks. Millicent Walker has more on today's trading.
Hello and welcome.
welcome to the Stock Market Report. It's the second day of recovery for the local stock market as benchmark index rose by 0.43 basis points at the close of today's trading session, while market capitalization increased further by about 40 billion naira to close at 9.35 trillion naira. However, Thursday's turnover came in slightly lower as a total of 155.59 million shares worth 1.75 billion naira were traded in 2,648 deals. For a second day, FBN Holdings remained the most actively traded stock, followed by Axis Bank and Transcorp. Total, Airline Services and Cadbury led 12 other stocks in percentage terms, while May & Baker, Africa Prudential and UAC Properties Development Company were the top 3 in a list of 18 losers. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Millicent Walker. Thank you so much, Millicent. Well, it's a mixed trade or mixed shade for major stocks today. Some of them were affected by weak oil prices, earnings, and economic data. These are the numbers. That's business news. Thank you so much for watching.
You first. First Bank.
The Chief Executive Officer of Diamond Bank PLC, Mr. Uzoma Dozier, has joined the Board of Trustees of a global non-profit organization, Women's World Banking. The Women's World Banking seeks to expand participation and power of low-income women and their households by helping them access financial services. At an event held today in Lagos, Mr. Dozier says the economic empowerment of women will add to the economic development of countries like Nigeria.
Including more women in financial services is the focus of this event held at the instance of one of Nigeria's leading banks, Diamond Bank. The bank is hosting the African Advisory Council, set up by a global non-profit organization, Women's World Banking, which has a mission to promote the financial inclusion of women globally. The event predictably attracted leading women in the financial as well as other sectors of the economy. The CEO of Diamond Bank says the bank has a history of making a difference in the environment.
Where we have always been successful is actually going into markets where nobody wants to go into because it is fraught with difficulty. So 25 years later, we're 25 years this year, we're driving the retail and we're also driving financial inclusion and working with Women's World Banking to actually bring more women into the financial space.
The honorary co-chair, former Finance Minister Professor Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, paints a gloomy picture of uncertainty owing to local global growth. But where will the financial inclusion of women and girls fit into this picture?
70% of African women excluded, according to the numbers, from financial access to financial services. And if you bring them in, it could present another growth opportunity.
The president and CEO of Women's World Banking is excited about the partnership with Diamond Bank.
Well, we met Diamond many years ago when they were first had a loan from the IFC that was dedicated to serving women businesses. And so we were excited that they had taken that opportunity, and we asked them if they wanted to do more.
In developing our products, we take into consideration special attributes of men and special attributes of women. And when we do that, we come up with solutions that women can use and men can use conveniently, like our better proposition.
Diamond Bank's Better Proposition, developed with Women's World Banking, is an innovative financial product which targets market women.
Next on the news at 10, African Table Tennis Federation honors the continent's most decorated player for his exploits in the game. That's the sports news. Do join us again.